In this Burnout Extra, I'm going to do an overview on this 1952 MGTD that you may have seen on our channel a bunch. This car is awesome, it is super unique, and Tarpey and I actually did pretty much 99% of the work to make this car running and driving as you see it today. So if you haven't checked out the videos already, be sure to check out episode 3. That's where we actually build the car and go into some detail on how things were done, and then we road tripped it up to Maine. Like I said, in this video, I'm going to do an overview of the car and touch upon a few different things that makes the car unique, but also makes it run and drive, and how the actual system is built on this chassis. So let's jump right in. So this is actually a 1974 Volkswagen Beetle, and that is the chassis and frame of this car. So that is how it originated as a Volkswagen Beetle. Since then, it has been converted to a 52 MGTD style look. Now, the specs of the length and width are not the exact same as a 52 MG, simply because these body panels and this body style of the car is made by a company called Fiberfab. Now, Fiberfab, I believe, is still around to this day, but they no longer make the MG model. However, these were super common back in the day, along with a few Mercedes and the classic fender looks that were Volkswagen kit cars. So if you meet an old timer or someone who knows a lot about cars, they'll look at this car and say, hey, that's a nice Volkswagen, or that's a nice kit car. However, if you don't know that there is a Volkswagen motor in the back of this car, or that there's a Volkswagen chassis underneath, you'll look at it and you'll think it is a 1952 MG. There's another video I'll link right up in the upper right corner, and that's when we took this thing to a British car show. But what's funny is that this car is not actually British. It's technically a German drivetrain. So it's ironic because we were one of the most popular cars at the show because of the uniqueness of this MG, but it's really not a real MG. So right now I'm going to dive into the different components of what makes it a Volkswagen on paper, but what makes it an MG by look. So I mentioned that the chassis and floor pan of this car is actually from a Volkswagen, and this is proof. So the shock and strut mount right here, this is technically from a 74 Beetle, as well as the master cylinder, the drivetrain, the steering, all the way down to the rims. You can see that this is a 4-bolt lug pattern, and that's old Volkswagen. These are all Volkswagen parts. So when you go to buy rims or even the right tire size, you're essentially referring to a Volkswagen book or trying to buy rims that have the right bolt pattern for an old Volkswagen. That appeals for the entire front end underneath the body. It's kind of hidden underneath. Now let's jump back quick to the engine and I'll explain that as well. The old-fashioned Volkswagen Beetles from that era, I believe it was from 1967 to maybe around 78 or 79. I could be wrong on those years. But those had the engines in the rear of the car. They are Volkswagen air-cooled, around 1600 cc engines, 4 cylinders, and produce barely any horsepower at all. But this is what powered those old Beetles as well as the buses from that time. And this is what this car has. So it's set up as a Volkswagen engine in the back, all the way down to this splash pan here that kind of keeps the dirt off of the engine. This is Volkswagen, and then this is a Fiberfab panel that is made to go around it. So like I said, this is completely bone stock. We've pretty much just gave it a tune-up, made sure the carburetor was adjusted, made sure that the distributor was working, as well as the fuel pump, air filter, and things like that. Oil change, and it was good to go. This is completely stock. Even in episode 3, we drove on this stock engine. We've done nothing to it. That being said, we did the wiring ourselves. That's why it looks like this. But as I mentioned, this is part of the chassis, and attached to this on the other side is a 2-wheel drive transmission, essentially a gearbox that drives the 2 rear wheel tires for this MG. So like I said, all Volkswagen drivetrain and everything. The shifter, the linkage, all that is Volkswagen. The shift pattern, the pedals, that's all Volkswagen parts because it has to do with the drivetrain and chassis of this build. So while we're back here, I will mention that all the lights you see are definitely not MG related. Now there's a site you can get MG parts on, but original MG parts are actually pretty expensive. And to be honest, they don't always match up with the Fiberfab body because they are made for original MG TDs. So what I did is pretty much put some aftermarket lights on here. So I just took 2 circle ones for the brakes. These are actually interior lights that I use as reverse lights because we need those. And then this is just a bar strip that I put on the bottom because I figured you wouldn't really be able to see the side ones that well, even though they typically light up just fine. All the Volkswagen is hid under the MG, and the MG is kind of MG, but it's all custom with different lights and different fittings along the side of it. Normally with an MG, your blinkers and your taillights and brake lights will all be within the same bulb and lens. However, I didn't wire it up that way, so I actually ended up buying some motorcycle blinkers and attached those up here, and these are essentially the blinkers in the car. To be honest, I rarely use my blinkers, I just use hand signals, but yes, I need them to pass an inspection. But yeah, the lights all over this car are pretty much custom and randomized. You'll notice that. It looks like an MG from afar, but once you get up close, or if you're British, you'll notice it's not an MG. Maybe British people wouldn't know either, I don't know. Right now I'm going to do a deep dive on the interior a little bit. There are different body panels and fabrics that you can buy to fit these types of kit cars. So this wood dash and this wood steering wheel, although they're different shades, you can technically buy them, at least at the time, to fit a fiber fab kit. Now, luckily, this dash came with the car as well as the steering wheel, but the dash was on the car forever, and that's why it's more faded than the steering wheel, because the steering wheel was put on after. Regardless, I also got the fabric for these door panels as well as the seats. So the actual fabric part, which looks like leather, but that part came with the kit. So once again, I don't know if you can buy it nowadays, but fiber fab, when the kit came out, you could buy these pieces. So the only thing that Tarpy and I had to do was put in some type of cushion inside the actual seat and then use a wood board underneath and put these fake leather covers over the top to make it look like an MG seat, which we did all of that in episode 3 as well. But from there, it's really pretty much custom. So when it comes down to the button switches or even gauges, those are mostly made to look like an MG but are not original, as well as an extra panel down here to charge your phone and start the car, as well as some interior lights. This is all custom as well. And I had trouble getting in this Volkswagen steering shaft, so holding it in, and it's actually upside down, so that's all custom as well, including the steering adapters. And we have videos on almost all of that on our channel. If you're interested, be sure to check those out. I'll say it time and time again, up close it doesn't look like an MG if you know what an MG looks like, but from afar it's an eye catcher and a head turner. Oh, and these are the cup holders. Also custom, look at that bolt. If you've looked closely into some of the videos we have on this MG, you'll notice that the wiring on this car is crazy. It's all over the place. And what we got when we got the kit was pretty much 2 different wiring harnesses. That was really it. One was for ground, and then one was for power feed to a lot of the dash components. With that said, a lot of it was testing things out, figuring out where things go and how to hook them up. And to be honest, I barely knew wiring myself, so I had to figure out all of this while we were building the MG. So yes, the wiring looks super wonky. However, it honestly works great and is very reliable with the exception of one of them. It's pretty phenomenal that we're able to learn that on a car this basic because there's really not a ton of accessories or anything else to hook up. So once we kind of got the hang of it, then from there it was, okay, let's hook up the battery and actually start testing things. Honestly, like there's too much wiring in some place, there's too little in other places, the wrong colors are everywhere. However, it works. And I mean, I can't complain. Like, let's drive the car if it works, you know? That's my attitude. Another difference that is custom in this MG is actually the mirrors here. So these side mirrors are supposed to be mounted on the front fenders, and that's how you view beside you. And then this rear view mirror is actually supposed to be mounted on the dash itself in an actual 52 MG. So once again, these are minor details that if you really know about cars, you might have noticed things like that, but obviously, from the look of it, you probably wouldn't tell. I actually love having them where they are. I think you can see out of them much better, and it's more convenient having it up top rather than on the dash in your viewing point. Another thing on this MG is I didn't install the actual kickboards or running boards. I was too afraid that somebody would step on this part. So there's supposed to be another fiberglass piece that kind of connects these 2 fenders here. I was so afraid that people would step on it when they get in and out of the car that I ended up just not putting it in at all. However, in turn, I now have to deal with kind of crappy look right here and the seatbelt suntan from the seatbelt hanging out the car for so long. But you know, it is what it is, and maybe someday I'll install them. Tarpy wants me to potentially put them in and make bed frame supports so that if somebody does step on them or there is pressure on them, it will hold just fine, but maybe that'll come in a future video. For now, it's gonna stay exactly as it is with the rat look, which I love. So many people want me to paint this car when I first show them the car, and I just really dig the look. I really dig the look. Down to the handprints on the door. It's phenomenal. Underneath the hood of this 74 Beetle or 52 MG is completely custom. Everything under here is custom. So if you want to see more details about what exactly is going on here, leave a comment down in the comment section and we will respond to your comment, as well as potentially give you the links to the parts if you're interested as well. But I'm going to do a brief overview of everything that's custom inside here, because this is truly where the custom work comes in as far as getting this car to run. Obviously, this is a gas tank. The engine's not up in the front because that was in the rear. So this is the tank. It's an 8-gallon racing tank that exits out of the bottom. And yes, this is my filler cap. I also have a bed frame welded together on the steering shaft with another old Volkswagen part as well. So that's in another video if you want to check that out too. There's obviously tons of wiring with a custom fuse block and a couple inline fuses installed there as well. And then there's also 3 sets of horns because I installed this set, realized I couldn't hook them up correctly, installed these, realized that they weren't loud enough, wanted to put this thing in, but it draws too much amperage. So we rewired these so that they're loud enough now. But that's all custom. The battery is wedged down in there separately, and somehow the wires are all held back so that the car can run and drive without them getting caught. In an actual MG, it would be a spick and span folding up hood with a nice engine underneath. And this wouldn't all be here. And honestly, in a Volkswagen, this wouldn't all be here either. It's normally just a Volkswagen gas tank with maybe one other cubby for the battery, but maybe a spare tire too, actually. So once again, that is my 1952 MG on a 1974 VW Beetle chassis and frame. I love this thing. You'll see it all over the channel. We will have this car for so long, and I take it as many places as I possibly can. My final thing that I will say about the MG is I put a nice little hood ornament of my initials on the front of the car. It literally means nothing except for my initials, so if you see it on the channel, that's the reason why it's there. But I actually do have the original Fiberfab logo, and I'm not sure if it was actually mounted on the front here at one point or not, but this grille is aftermarket. This is not MG either. And so this Fiberfab logo is supposed to go right there on the front of this grille. And once again, that came with the kit back in the day. However, it has since fallen off and I still have it, but regardless, I'd rather have my initials poking up on the top of this grille. The grille doesn't even do anything anyways because the engine's in the rear of the car. Thank you for watching. If you want to know any more details about the MG, just throw it in the comments section, shoot us an email, comment on our post, whatever it may be. We will get back to you and tell you anything that you may need to know about the build of this car. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Down to the hood stand. It's just straight custom, GoPro mount. I mean, you name it, screws poking through. It's dangerous, it's cool, it's ratty, and it's a kit car.